Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on our last minute Zoom online service. And I just invite you to settle in to your seats this morning as we hear our prelude, which is a familiar tune. It's the Finlandia tune, which appears in two hymns in our hymnal. This is our song, and we would be one. Welcome. Welcome everyone to our online Sunday service for March 13th. Due to weather, we're not meeting in our sanctuary today yet again. Just as we were all ready to be back in church this morning with the COVID restrictions lifted, we had to have snow throw a wrench in our works. We were planning to have a full complement of chalice singers and all the Sunday volunteers, and even have bulletins with newsletter inserts again. Alas, since we had to change everything at the last minute, I decided to slightly change my approach to today's service topic. Planting time was my original topic, which I still plan to do in the next couple of weeks to welcome spring. It's coming, I promise, and to lift up our planning and planting for the next church year with our annual stewardship campaign, which has just begun, with its title, Welcome Home, the sequel. Today, I decided to take the time for all of us to be together with our deep concerns about the war taking place these last 3 weeks against the country of Ukraine. The topic has become planting seeds of hope and peace as our hearts join together today with the global community in solidarity for the safety of those in Ukraine amidst the current violence. At the end of today's service, we will have a brief video message from the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee on their emergency response to Ukraine efforts. And now, as we begin our service, we have an opening song which was previously recorded by our very own Abby and Phil Darkangelis. The song is We Are Building a New Way from our teal-colored hymnal supplement that is called Singing the Journey. Welcome all.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
We come together each Sunday morning as a community of seekers, seekers of what is most important in our lives, seekers of understanding in the face of uncertainty and loss, seekers of forgiveness for our shortcomings, seekers of gratitude for the unexpected gifts we receive from all around us. We gather in awe of the beauty of nature and the mysteries of the universe. But most importantly, we come together as seekers of a community of love and empowerment, celebrating our search for truth and meaning in our daily lives. Chalice that's often displayed at our annual General Assembly there in the photographic. All right, join with me. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share, and then our covenant, which we really do know. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we do covenant one with another. All right, awesome. All right, so at this point, I want to invite you to finish arriving. I know we've got some people who are just coming in now for our service today with a revised title of Planting Seeds of Hope and Peace in light of the recent development of a war in Ukraine. So please do settle into your seats, taking some deep breaths, giving yourself permission to fully arrive in this time and this place and within this gathered community that we are creating together online today, and through the video recording that will remain after our meeting today. And taking some deep breaths to invite the fullness of who we are into this moment with all of our joys and concerns, including all of the concerns that we have about this new development on the world stage, the aggression in Ukraine presently. The meditation words are by the Unitarian Universalist minister Scott Alexander, and they were actually written many years ago. I pull them out every once in a while because I think that they're just beautifully done. You'll recognize our 7 principles are here, and we're in the process of considering adding an 8th principle, which is not included at this time. But please join with me in a spirit of affirming our Unitarian Universalist faith at this particular critical time in history on planet Earth. In a world with so much hatred and violence, we need a religion that proclaims the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In a world with so much brutality and fear, we need a religion that seeks justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. In a world with so many persons abused and neglected, we need a religion that calls us to accept one another and encourage one another to spiritual growth. In a world with so much dogmatism and falsehood, we need a religion that challenges us to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In a world with so much tyranny and oppression, we need a religion that affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. In a world with so much inequality and strife, we need a religion that strives toward the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. In a world with so much environmental degradation, we need a religion that advocates for the respect of the interdependent web of all existence in which we are a part. In a world with so much uncertainty and despair, we need a religion that teaches our hearts to hope and our hands to serve. This morning, we will now pause in silence, joining our hearts and minds with all the people of goodwill around the world, holding the people of Ukraine as they struggle to survive the current ravages of war. May all who are in danger and fleeing find safety. May all who are grieving the loss of their loved ones, their homes, their cities, find support and comfort to ease their deep pain. May all who are fighting to protect the lives of civilians or who are coming to the aid and rescue of those in peril be strengthened for their task. May the global community come together to pressure Russia to end this aggression and re-establish peaceful relations. May those who may feel inconvenienced or fearful pause to remember those in harm's way at this time, and to reclaim gratitude for the safety and freedoms we currently have. Please join with me now in a time of silence, holding the people of Ukraine in a compassionate embrace and enjoying the beautiful flower arrangement from last Sunday's service with the sunflowers in solidarity. Join me now in a brief silence that will then be followed by our chalice singers who will offer a choral music meditation. words for reflection before the message today are very slightly adapted from a reading by Rebecca Parker, Unitarian Universalist and Methodist minister, co-fellowship, who served as the president of the Star King School for the ministry for many years. She was the first woman president of an accredited seminary, which is kind of fun to lift up today during this month celebrating Women's History and with International Women's Day just this past week. These are the words of Rebecca Parker. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own. Earth made us. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the community of resistance, never to forget that life can be saved from that which threatens it by even small bands of people choosing to put into practice an alternative way of life. And let us covenant with one another to seek for an ever deep awareness of that which springs up inwardly in us, even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our lives. Even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is the ground of our hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill a promise of peace. These past 2 years have been extremely challenging for many of us. Each time we thought we were past the toughest of the COVID restrictions, we encountered the next round, Delta, then Omicron. Now that our local numbers are finally down and we are heading into spring, it kind of feels like we can have a new lease on life, doesn't it? Springtime and freedom to gather with others again. So, when the rumblings began a few short weeks ago about Putin's mounting pressure on Ukraine, we may not have been giving it our full attention. NATO rallied and was reunited in its opposition to the threats. Attempts at negotiating talks were carried out, but not to much avail. Maybe you were like me, hoping that it was all more bluster than an actual plan. But now we are witnessing what we'd hoped would not transpire, a Russian military invasion of Ukraine and Putin not backing down despite the resistance met on many fronts, including within the Russian population. So many innocent lives being thrust onto the front lines. So much destruction and suffering. It seems it was just the other day that the United States was finally withdrawing from its longest war in American history, and within a matter of weeks, a new war has begun and calls us all to respond. Of course, we hope that international multilateral diplomacy and economic sanctions will work, but for the Ukrainians and their immediate neighbors, an ongoing threat of instability and potential violence is all too real. Unfortunately, with the current fueling arrangements of Europe's petroleum needs, there are other countries who are sweating it out right about now. The whole plan for the worst, hope for the best approach could actually be a bit frightening for some of us realists here. As Unitarian Universalists, we often take an idealistic approach to the potentiality of humanity in general and the human capacity for compassion and cooperation specifically. A little more than 2 years ago, not very many people were giving thought to the possibility of a virus that could become a global pandemic. And once it actually started with the onset of COVID-19, how many people would have guessed the pandemic would just become more fodder for extreme political polarization rather than a world health crisis that could potentially unify us as a human family? We simply do not know what to expect or anticipate anymore, right? We seriously don't want to think about the possibility of a third world war, but can we confidently rule it out at this point? Now, I'm not trying to say that this is on the horizon, but damn, the living Europeans who witnessed the last one, the last World War, and survived the devastations can't help but take what is going on now in Ukraine very seriously. Younger people may be spared the tragic memories and may be spoiled to some degree into thinking that the world is more stable than it actually is. But in regards to the environment and the reality of global climate change, young people around the world may actually see the writing on the wall more clearly than their elders. Potentially, one silver lining of the current Russian aggression is the incentive for customers to switch over to alternative forms of power, including electric cars sooner rather than later. I was pleased to see the other day on television a commercial for a large American-made truck that is electric and being made available by pre-order. Yes, let's create that demand. While we can become well aware of our human capacity for greed, irresponsibility, and downright cruelty, we also know that our human family is made up of survivors. Survivors of hardship, survivors of tragedy, survivors of disaster, survivors of war. Our instincts to survive are as strong as the impulse of living things on this earth to grow toward the sunlight, as strong as the cycles of nature that bring new life out of decay and decomposition all around us. We witness this every spring, and isn't springtime made even more beautiful and poignant when we have weathered a long, hard winter? As we join today with people of goodwill around the whole world in deep longing for safety and justice for the people of Ukraine, how can we be among those who are planting seeds of hope and peace? First of all, we can affirm, we can continue to believe and to know that safety and justice are achievable. despite the odds that sometimes appear to the contrary. We can affirm, believe, and know that we humans are, in fact, capable of great compassion and a willingness to defend the sanctity of life, even when it requires hardship and sacrifice. We can affirm, believe, and know that the human creativity for negotiating relationships is unparalleled in the world of nature on this beautiful earth. We are one human family, after all, with all our limitations, but simultaneously our strengths. It matters what we believe. It matters how we think. And most importantly, it matters how we choose to act, especially in times when inaction is simply more comfortable. May we join today with our fellow humans around the world who are longing and willing to sacrifice to make hope and peace possible with the seeds that we are sowing in our everyday lives. I believe we can. And now, our chalice singers will share another beautiful song that affirms our tenacity for hope and peace, even in the midst, or perhaps despite in the midst of great adversity.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
The purpose of our church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and action. We hope you will consider making an offering after today's service through our webpage, uushenandoah.org, and this allows us to exercise that generosity of spirit for our self-supporting church and its many ministries which have continued during this prolonged time when we were not always able to be together physically like today. So we're really glad that you have joined us today. And before we extinguish the chalice, I just want to let you know that this coming week, we are kicking off the annual stewardship campaign on Saturday night online with the Sweet 16th Heart to Heart Cafe, which was postponed from last month. You won't want to miss it. And now, as Diana shares the slide for extinguishing our chalice, please join with me in saying the words from our homes. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. And Diana, I might have veered from the script here, but if you would just pause for a moment while I offer the closing words, that would be awesome. We do have, in addition to our credits at the end of the service, we have a brief video message from the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee this morning about their emergency response efforts for Ukraine. But before that, our closing words, which are a shortened reprise of the reading by Rebecca Parker. Even when our hearts are broken, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is the ground of our hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill a promise of peace. Stay safe, stay strong, and we'll see you back in church soon. Stay tuned for this message from the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, followed by our closing credits. And we hope to see you also at our noon Zoom at 12 o'clock. Thanks for being here.
Hello, friends. My name is Laura Randall, and I'm a minister on staff with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, better known as UUSC. Since our beginnings serving refugees displaced by Nazi aggression during World War II, UUSC has been called to respond to unexpected crises and provide resources to communities whose needs are urgent and access to aid is limited. Donating to UUSC's Emergency Response Fund ensures UUSC is always ready to provide relief, including our developing work to protect the rights of refugees fleeing Ukraine right now. UUSC's first step is to send emergency relief funding to groups who are working on the ground in Eastern Europe. This will happen quickly, as UUSC has existing partners in the area from our Syrian refugee work. This includes partners such as the Hungarian Helsinki Committee, who are already responding to the current crisis by providing free legal assistance, counseling, and representation so that Ukrainian asylum seekers receive temporary protection immediately. Following the relief grants, UUSC's team will develop a strategy for longer-term recovery alongside these same partners. We know that our partner organizations on the ground are best positioned to identify the needs of affected communities and respond to those pressing needs in a way that leads to equitable recovery and honors the right to self-determination. And just as we are being called to aid those impacted by the crisis in Ukraine now, our commitment to partners facing displacement and violence in other parts of the world, such as Haiti and Burma, remains just as strong as ever. We recognize that systems of violence and oppression intersect, and that what affects one affects all. We know how important it is to look to communities that are often overlooked when tragedy strikes and center the needs and experiences of those most impacted in our responses. Thank you for the trust you place in your service committee, and thank you for your support in this time of great need.
Thanks everybody for joining us.